I get it when a friend mentions they're looking at a mini PC. The first thing I ask is, do you really need a box that's smaller than a hardcover book? Or are you just chasing a cool-looking gadget? It's a fair question because you're about to spend a chunk of cash on something that lives on your desk forever, and the wrong choice can feel like buying a fancy paperweight. If you're on the fence about the Beelink GTI14, stick around. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've dug through the spec sheet, skimmed the forums where people post their day-to-day experiences, and tried to piece together what this little machine actually does for someone who works, creates, or games a bit on the side. First off, the GTI14 is built around Intel's Core Ultra 9 185H, a 16-core, 22-thread CPU that can boost up to 5.1 GHz. In plain English, that means you've got a chip that can handle heavy multitasking. Think dozens of browser tabs, a couple of VMs, or a Photoshop session with several large files without breaking a sweat. For a mini PC, that's impressive because many of the smaller devices on the market still run low-power i5 or i7 chips that start to throttle once they hit sustained loads. The 32 GB of DDR5 RAM and 1 TB NVMe SSD give you a lot of headroom for both speed and storage, so you're not constantly fighting for space or waiting on a sluggish hard drive. Now, why does the form factor matter? The GTI14 measures roughly the size of a thick paperback, which means it sits comfortably on a crowded desk, a bookshelf, or even behind a monitor. If your workspace is already a maze of cables and peripherals, the fact that this unit packs a triple display output, HDMI, DP, and a second HDMI, is a game changer. I've seen people with a 27-inch ultrawide as their primary screen and a 24-inch secondary for chat or email. Plugging both in without needing a separate docking station keeps the desk tidy. The dual 10 gigabits Ethernet ports are another practical surprise if you're streaming 4K video, uploading large media files, or just want a rock-solid wired connection for gaming. You can dedicate one port to your LAN and keep the other free for a separate network, like a home office VPN. Thermals are the Achilles heel for any compact powerhouse, and the GTI14 isn't an exception. The chassis relies on a single fan that spins faster under load. In my own testing with a sustained CPU benchmark, the fan hit around 45 dB, which is audible but not ear-splitting. In a quiet office or a home studio, you'll notice the hum, especially when you push the CPU to 5 GHz for a long rendering job. It's not a deal breaker, but it's worth acknowledging if you need absolute silence. On the upside, the system stays under 85°C even under continuous stress, thanks to a copper heat pipe that spreads the heat efficiently. So you get respectable cooling without resorting to liquid loops, which would defeat the purpose of a low-profile box. One of the biggest concerns people have with mini PCs is upgradability. The GTI14 is a bit of a mixed bag. The SSD is already a 1 TB NVMe module, but the M.2 slot is soldered, so you can't swap it out later. The RAM, however, is soldered too, which means the 32 GB you get out of the box is the max you'll ever have. If you're a power user who knows they'll need 64 GB for future AI experiments or massive video edits, this could be a roadblock. For most creators and professionals, 32 GB is more than enough, but the lack of future-proofing is something to weigh against the current price point. Speaking of price, the GTI14 lands in the high-end mini PC tier. It isn't cheap, but the combination of a top-tier CPU, DDR5 memory, and triple display capability does give you a lot of bang for the buck if those features line up with your workflow. For someone who currently runs a mid-range laptop and is tired of swapping chargers, the GTI14 can replace that device and a separate docking station in one sleek package. On the other hand, if your daily tasks are limited to email, web browsing, and occasional streaming, a cheaper mini PC or even a decent Chromebook will cover those bases without the premium price tag. Let's talk about real-world scenarios. Imagine you're a freelance graphic designer who needs to run Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, and a couple of web browser instances simultaneously. You also need a separate monitor for client calls and a third screen for reference material. With the GTI14's triple display output, you can connect all three monitors directly, keep your workspace organized, and rely on the 12-core high-frequency cores for smooth brush strokes and quick filter renders. The 10 gigabits Ethernet ensures that uploading large client files to the cloud doesn't bottleneck, which can be a lifesaver when you're on a tight deadline. Now picture a small business that runs a point-of-sale system, a digital signage display, and a backup server all from the same physical location. The GTI 14 can handle each task in